live.
So this is the inaugural episode of the Zach and Ethan trio. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Zach.
And we are coming to you from my apartment, which is in Philadelphia. And that's about all you need to know, besides the fact that it's snowy outside.
Yes, and this is the Ethan and Zach trio inaugural episode.
Alright, so what is the show about?
The show's about the show.
The show's about this episode is about the show, because it's our first episode. It's the inaugural episode.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about what the show is about, but we already kind of know that the show is going to be about whatever, right? The show is going to be about us talking.
Right, but the thing is, basically, this is how it has worked so far, is that Ethan has something on his mind, and Zach has opinions about everything. And so Ethan says what's on his mind, and Zach says what his opinions on that are.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it works. I think it goes both ways. I think that you also
I know, I do. I'm not
mind.
saying I don't have stuff on my mind, but the stuff that's on my mind is usually it can be out there. Like, it helps to have another person to...
Okay, so my job is to ground the conversation. To that end, for instance, I introduced this episode. I might bring a topic every once in a while, and, Zach will be the one to comment as he sees fit.
But
I will comment as well.
But who, pray tell, is the mysterious third person of the Ethan and Zach trio?
Well, if you ask me, I'd say it's ambiguous. I suppose you have another opinion, though.
Oh no, I feel that without that third, we don't. Let's face it, we love the name. We don't know who the third person is. Fair?
Fair.
All right.
Let the third person remain nameless for now.
All right. Okay, so what does it take to make a good podcast?
Well, I think we ought to work on being funny. I think we got to work on being coherent when we're talking about these things. Zach and I are both really interested in philosophy, and we talk about philosophy at length. We have to be, careful to make sure our audience can follow us.
But okay, question.
Yeah.
If we curse and use language that would be inappropriate for, say, a 6-year-old who didn't grow up in the city or who didn't grow up in the modern times.
Our podcast won't be appropriate for 6-year-olds, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
because we will be cursing and we will be talking about
a lot
of stuff.
Why are we worried? Why are we worried about doing...
I'll tell you why I'm worried. I think I'm worried about making a podcast that's not good.
Oh.
Because I would know what a good podcast is. I know what a good podcast is. I listen to them all the time.
Okay, you're actually a podcast listener to her.
I'm actually a podcast listener to her. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
It means... I don't really listen to podcasts all the time.
Oh,
that's all I'm trying to say.
Like a connoisseur? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, you know the difference between a good podcast and... See, I'm not...
Okay, well, but you don't really have to be... you don't really have to know podcasts. You just have to know what's interesting to you and what's not. Certainly there are things that are not interesting to you.
In other words, you don't have to know what a good podcast is to make a good podcast.
That's correct. But I want to help you see my concern. There's things that you experience that you're just not interested in, right?
Well, right. And are you worried that this
podcast... right. Let me ask you this. If you were listening to this, is there a chance that you would be able to see it without a bias? Like, could you tell if this was bad?
In an unbiased way that this was good or bad, depending on what it really was?
Yes, or will you inevitably think it's good because it's you? And, be honest, we both know ourselves well enough to know that.
It doesn't matter. What matters is what other people think. It doesn't matter what I think.
I know, but I'm trying to get at, you have opinions about other things, right? So other people will have opinions about this. And you're right, that their opinion is what matters, but I'm saying that some of them might not think this is interesting.
But So you're just worried that the Ethan and Zach trio is three people who just aren't interesting. And I'm not really worried about that.
Is that because you think you're interesting?
Yes, for one.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's one thing that makes us different.
But the second thing is, I don't even care. This is a great opportunity for me.
It's a great opportunity if the show does well.
No. This is a great opportunity to try a podcast.
Okay, well, if it's just about creating something, then I don't have to be concerned at all, because we'll always have this. But I'm doing this, as I believe you are, so that we can.
Because you want to be famous.
Because we want to be famous. Yeah, both you and I are writers, right? Both you and I have stated openly and honestly that we want.
Yeah.
Fame, if not influence. I think what we mean when we talk about fame is influence.
Yeah, we're
not power grabbers. We just want to be heard.
Yeah,
we have a message to give, and we want to be heard. This is one way to do it. Writing is another way to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that happens. So
I guess
this is either going to be it or it's not going to be it.
But if you're a 6-year-old and
what's with you and the 6-year-olds? Is it a 6-year-old girl? Is that what we're talking about? Who is this 6-year-old girl?
I was going to do a really grotesque.
I don't know if we want to go there yet.
Illustration. Okay.
Why don't you go ahead? Fuck it.
Okay, if you're a 6-year-old and you get cornered by your creepy uncle, then you had no choice. You may blame yourself for the rest of your life, or until you heal, but you had no choice.
You brought it there already. Why don't we just talk about choice in the abstract? And free, you're bringing up a really sort of specific and
creepy.
Yeah, macabre and, very bad. But
I'm just saying, if we make a bad podcast, we had no choice.
You realize if I was a psychoanalyst,
it's like being
I would be jizzing my pants right now if I was a psychoanalyst because of what you just said.
Well, first of all, was it interesting? I mean,
it is interesting, and I think we ought to talk about it too.
Like in a serious, I have a problem way, or in a
No, in do we have control over what? Let's bring it home. If this turns out to be something that's really bad, can you really hold it against us? Or should you kind of just give us credit for doing it and for moving on?
The listener?
Should we? No, us. Because your example was an example of something bad that happens to somebody, and your question was, can you blame the person? Am I understanding your premise correctly?
Yeah, and I'm saying, in the classic case of the abusive, of child abuse.
It was an uncle, by the way.
Well, it's always an uncle. I mean, come on. That's the symbolic go-to metaphor to illustrate a point.
Yeah, creepy uncle's a good one.
I mean, when you're trying to make a point, you gotta use, the traditional, I'm not trying to disparage the uncles of the world. Especially not the creepy uncle. I mean, I'm sure there are some really good creepy uncles. That's not the point. You know that's not the point, and I know that's not the point.
Right.
So, the point is that if we make a bad podcast, it's like getting raped by your creepy uncle when you're 6. You couldn't do anything. You may feel bad about it, but you had no choice.
Fair enough. And I'll say again, an interesting analogy to draw upon.
But that's life. If you make bad products...
Fair enough, but shouldn't we compare it rather to some, that's a clear example of something where the actor had no choice. You're putting us into the role of the child, the 6-year-old child, who clearly didn't have a choice. The whole point is that he or she didn't have a choice.
Right.
Whereas, in this case, unless the third person is the creepy uncle, and the creepy uncle is the one making us do this, which I think is an interesting idea. Perhaps we are, in a way, sort of being compelled to do this by some sort of exterior force. And in that sense, how can you really fault us? But that just doesn't feel right. I'm a believer in free will. I think you are too. And this was a choice. This is a choice we came to after deliberating and after, talking about what we want from it. And that, to me, is really sort of the important ethical question. It's when you want something, and you try to get it, then there is sort of, when you don't get it, there is sort of something wrong, right? We can't sort of brush that off as like, well, what, like you didn't have a choice.
Well, I'll tell you this. If I tend to overthink, and I overthink to such an extent that if I came here to make this podcast, if I knew like what the topic would be, I would be really tense. Like it's almost like, now sometimes maybe I could have a vague notion of the topic, but generally I figure that it'll be the most natural, like fluid. I'll be at my best if I don't know what's up.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm all for not thinking about this too much.
And that means I can't choose. Like, maybe I'll do a bad performance, but if I even think about it beforehand, if I apply free will and, like, try to dot my I's and cross my T's, it's like I'm writing out, like, filling out a form. And then this is just my personal opinion, is that, especially at the beginning, like, this is our first episode, we have to try free form. Like, we can't just, like, I can't write a report.
I got another example for you. This one's kind of funny. It's near and dear to my heart. Let's say we record for an hour, and we get some good stuff. We both know it's really good. And then we find out that I wasn't recording. Okay. How does that register for you?
Basically, at that point, what happens is, if we're committed to making the episode, then we just hit record at that point, go another hour, and we have to sacrifice some of the great jokes that happen to pop up spontaneously in the first episode. You have to give them up, because you can try to resurrect them, but then there's that whole thing of, like, woulda, shoulda, coulda kind of thing, where, like, sometimes the natural, I think let's just say my best colors are often shining when I'm not thinking about past performances, when I'm really present to the moment.
Fair enough. Just to let you know, and to let our audience know, I'm going to be coming back to this over and over again. I think this is a really sort of important problem, and, I'm going to want to talk to you about it a lot. I think that,
about planning or not planning? Or about free will versus not free will?
Yeah, about ethics, about, like, what we do, and, how what we do affects us, and what we should do, if we can even speak of such a thing. I find these to be notions that are sort of spoken about, but really sort of brushed aside, and I think they're very problematic. And the more I think about it, the more I'm sort of convinced of this, that, there is such a thing as better, and that we have to strive for that, and that striving for that means a certain amount of suffering. More and more I'm finding myself convinced of this idea, and then the more I become convinced of it, sort of the more stressed out I get. So it's this weird sort of circular, paradoxical thing where it's like...
Do you consider yourself a stressed out person at this time?
No, because I think that a stressed out person is a loaded term, which would mean that I can't really function all that well. Mm-hmm. And truth be told, if you asked anybody, they wouldn't think I'm stressed out. Mm-hmm. And even if you asked me, I'd say no, it's just that I sort of think about things a lot. It's funny that you said that before, that you think about things a lot. I sort of thought of that as something that distinguishes us, not in the sense that you don't think about things, but in the sense that I would say that I overthink things. And I sort of overthink things like, the podcast, how's it going to be? And is the recorder on? And I need to keep checking. And what if the red light means that it's not actually on? All these things that I think about. And I sort of admire you for not really...
Well, I have made some recordings. I have a few YouTube lectures, which we can post the links to. And so let's face it, you know how, there's an old abandoned church or whatever, and it's got a layer of dust, and then when the crew, the new crew or whatever walks in, the birds, the flock of pigeons fly away, right? So that's, anytime you're new to a thing, then you're going to have that flock of pigeons that's in that old bin, and how,
okay, I like this.
you know, and so maybe like basically the question is, are you always going to have that flock of pigeons, or is it just like the first couple episodes before, like when you're not sure what's going on, and you haven't developed the kind of like confidence?
Yeah,
you know.
I think you're right. I think this whole thing that we were talking about before about fame and whether or not this is good and whether or not people like it, I sort of think that's a red herring. You're right. I think my real concern is sort of like turning on a recorder and talking to somebody for an hour and then listening to it and being like, oh, that's what I sound like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and you're right. Yeah, the comparison to a flock of pigeons is really cool because we're kicking up dust right now. This is sort of latent potentiality between us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we do this a lot. We talk about things.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily record it. We don't ever record it, actually.
No, but I'll say for my part, and this is Zach talking.
I hope we're easy to tell apart, because that'd be kind of troublesome if me, you were the third person. Is hard to tell apart.
I just don't know if, like, maybe people who don't know us will, like, forget who was Zach and who was Ethan or something.
That is Zach. This is Ethan. Here comes Zach with a special message from Zach.
Zach is about to forget this special message.
Don't forget it, Zach.
All right, but when you tell Zach not to forget something, he's more likely to forget it.
Well, then stop talking about forgetting it and just say it.
Okay, it had something to do with flock of pigeons, and
Oh, you already forgot it.
Yeah.
Damn it.
It's fine though. I mean, that's the thing. That's
it's
what I think.
Come back.
But I don't mind that. That's what I want. I want to not remember.
That's weird, though.
No, but it means my mind is filled with something else, which is more interesting than the thing I just forgot.
Yeah, but if you get that thing back, then you will have that thing and what your mind is full of right now.
But that thing may have been like, there's a lot of dynamics going on. There's a lot of like very subtle strands of...
So you think that maybe that one thing you just forgot could have been like bad, actually, for you?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been inappropriate.
Right.
Or it could have...
it could have been upsetting.
Yeah, it could have, like, ruined the rhythm. Like, maybe we're just getting into a rhythm now, and if you had gotten it, we would never would have had this conversation, so there you go. I mean, already right there, it kind of has a negative That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, it all leads to the next thing.
But here you go. I think that trying to get that thing back is really important, because that's truly what led to this, right? Like, you were trying to get that thought back, and the fact that you couldn't, and the fact that you tried. So that's really important.
I do have faith. I have, like, a kind of religious faith in the notion that it will come back.
So, right. I mean, that's what I'm starting to develop in my old age.
In my day. We didn't have these iPhones.
I'm starting to develop this sense that if I lose something, I'll get it back. Right? Like, I've taught myself to do something really kind of cool lately, which is, if I have a thought, I'm like, ooh, that's a good thought. Like, I need to get it down. I'm searching for paper, and then I'm like, I lost it. I have a method now for getting it back, which is just to repeat whatever inputs I was experiencing when I got the thought, right? So if I was watching a movie and I got the thought, I rewind the movie, and I start to listen, and it's worked, like, 3 times out of 3. So that's 100%.
But when did you come up with this? How old is this?
This is pretty new. This is in the last few months.
Okay, 3 times.
Yeah, no, it'll happen a good, like...
Yeah.
It'll probably happen every month or so.
It's because the human machine isn't really that unpredictable. If you put the same inputs in, it often will just go to the same place it was.
That's true. It's interesting, though, to think that way, because we both agree that the human's sort of a machine, but other people wouldn't. Other people would think that, well, if you put the same inputs in, you're not.
But but if it always worked, then no one would ever forget anything. They would always be able to remember everything.
Right, so you're saying there is some room for error even in this paradigm.
I'm just saying, the chances are, people aren't...
I guess what I'm saying is we don't really own up to our mechanical aspect as much as like you and I own up. I think you and I would both agree that the human being is somewhat mechanical. Like a machine, like if you put in inputs, the same thing will come out.
But especially at that same phase of their life. Like, if early in the morning and then later at night, I mean, if you put the same inputs in, then they're the same person in that phase of their life, you know? They're the same 22-year-old or whatever, you know? They still think about the same basic stuff. But also, I don't have that thing, like Dave Matthews has a lyric where he says, "Shut up, I'm thinking. I had a clue, now it's gone forever."
Okay.
You know?
Shut up now, I'm thinking. I had a clue, now it's gone forever.
Shut up, I'm thinking. Yeah. And now I had a clue, now it's gone forever. And,
okay.
But so for him, like, that's obviously a big deal. And I think there's just certain people for whose personality it's a big deal. Like, it's like whatever they were thinking really was that important, and they really were distracted from it. But I'm not.
But here's the thing.
I'm not usually like that. For me, I can get back. I can get back to what I was thinking.
Okay,
you know?
so here's
I can see it all.
Again, like I'm going to come back to this sort of this ethical problem, right? Like my argument before was that it's the search for that thing that makes beauty happen, right? It's the searching for that thing that made Dave Matthews sing that song. And so to fall back and say like, oh well, like I lost it, I don't need to try to get it back, is to fail in that effort to create beauty.
Well,
and I'm sorry to, the only reason I say this
it's not because you don't know. You just don't know. No, but you just don't know if the thing that distracted you. I mean, this.
No. It's not the thing. It's the search for the thing, right? You lose a thing, and you have two choices. You either don't search for it, or you do,
or you get back on track.
Right? You get back on track, or you're like, no, wait, that thing, I need to get it back. My argument is that searching for the thing.
Look, I have inner peace. Like, I don't have things that, like, I'm scared of losing forever. I'm not racked with the fear of losing something forever. Like, I guess I've almost like I've been to the mountaintop. And, I mean, that sounds arrogant. I mean, I suspect it might sound arrogant. I don't know how it really sounds, but I feel like that's why I'm not scared of losing stuff. It's like, I felt like I've already won the biggest battle or something like that. It's like I call myself, I'm a mystic or something, and I don't know, I feel like I just won the big battle, and so if I lose a little,
yeah,
that's just me talking about who I am. Like, I don't know how to place it in the context of the world. I don't know, like, where do I fit in?
I'm starting to wonder if we have the same opinion of free will and fatalism, because I sort of feel like the way you're talking, it's like your actions are sort of a non-starter in terms of your end, right? Like where you go from here is not as directly determined by your actions as it is in my mind. Whereas for me, it's like every single decision I make is going to have ramifications later.
Yeah, well, that's like a classic case of like, I would say you are ego possessed in the sense that your ego is that sense of I, that sense of who you are, and that it's got a huge stake in how everything is rolling.
Yes, I agree.
And I guess I'm not somehow. I do experience anxiety. I often feel like, I hope good things happen to me. I hope I have a good life. But I always end up seeing it as, I hope I have a good life. I hope that good things happen. Like the Ethan and Zach trio.
So what would be the antithesis to egocentric? Just so we have a little bit of structure. what can we, I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think I'm egocentric in my
Yeah.
I'm egocentric in my theory of
Yeah.
free will.
Well, in religious terms, it would be God-centric, or typically like Christians will use the term God-centric,
Okay, that's fair enough. So both you and I have a conception of free will. It's just yours is more God-centric and mine is more egocentric. Can you say that?
Yeah, I think we can say that.
Okay.
That we might find little hiccups in there.
Yeah, we can always correct it later.
Okay.
So
But that's part of why we're having this podcast, is because there's a dialogue, there's a tension of opposites, as my hero Carl Jung would say.
Right. I mean, you and I think you once said it really sort of nicely, is that you and I are different, but we don't sort of present any competition to each other.
Yeah, or at least it's minimal. It's a minimal level.
Yeah, or it's not. Yeah, right. I think that was a misstatement. It's not that we don't present any competition to each other. It's that the competition that we do present to each other, we're both sort of forgiving of it, right? We both sort of we let our differences arise.
Yes.
And we deal with them both. And I think what sort of sets you and I apart from everybody else is that we sort of own up to ourselves in a way that's really sort of disarming.
Well, with the caveat, with the caution that when you say everybody else, it's a pretty broad.
Yeah. Let me retract that statement. I don't want to sound like a narcissist as well as an egocentric bastard. What I mean is that when you and I are together, we sort of we allow ourselves to come forth in a way. We have a really sort of special kind of trust, right?
Well, look, we've only known each other for like half a year. I don't want the audience to get the wrong impression that we've been together. We're like bosom buddies for like.
No, it was one of those things where we met and we as soon as I found out, I think it's philosophy. I think that the fact that there's so few people out there who call themselves philosophers. I mean, I think we could turn to any of our, to our listeners. Zach and I are in a philosophy meetup group together.
Wednesdays.
This will probably come up fairly often.
7 o'clock at the Good Karma Cafe.
We might as well get it out.
You gotta plug yourself.
And my point is that, we could turn to any one of those guys and we could have conversations like this, and they would be meaningful because you both wear that badge of philosophy. And these days, I mean, how many people that you meet on a daily basis call themselves philosophers? How many of our listeners would call themselves philosophers? I think, at this point, very few.
Mm-hmm. I call myself a mystic philosopher because I can't boil myself down to a bunch of words,
So you might as well use an extra word just to make it a little more tasty.
Yeah, well...
Throw another spice into the stew.
I just think philosophy is, it's like, this is how I explained it before, is, you have the four, traditional elements. Earth, air, fire, and water.
Yes.
And, fire and water are, they're divided into, like, pairs of opposites. Like, fire and water are opposites, and earth and air are opposites.
Right.
Now, philosophy, as it has come to be understood, probably, and has ever been true ever since Plato, has tended to be associated with what I call the air element, which is, it's verbal, it's using words, it's not concrete, it's abstract, but not concrete.
Fair enough, but that's the only tool they had. In their defense, that's the only tool they had. It's not like if you're sculpting a sculpture, you're a philosopher, right? A philosopher is somebody who uses words to describe the way the world works. Right,
and that's exactly why I call myself a mystic philosopher rather than a regular philosopher, because for me, words are not the end. Words, there's a thing beyond words.
So your mysticism, what element does that bring into the mix besides air?
Well, earth is the opposite of air, so I want to be like a grounded person, grounded in the earth.
Fair enough. I mean, I guess I really like that.
Like Socrates, for example, is kind of a famous character because he didn't write anything down, and he advocated, he said writing things down kind of spoils it.
Right.
And of course Plato wrote a lot of what he said down.
So let me try to paraphrase you.
I'm Socrates.
Your title, yeah, right. You're calling yourself a mystic philosopher is a way to. Being a mystic philosopher means talking about things as opposed to writing them down.
No, well, I guess, no, when I call myself a mystic philosopher, it means I just so happen to be really good at what people call philosophy. But at core, I see myself as a mystic. Like,
fair enough.
You know.
I guess I'm trying to get at, you brought up the elements, and if we're gonna, call words air.
Right.
And we're gonna, it's,
concrete experience.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're gonna poo-poo on air a little bit. We're gonna say that, air and words are, airy.
Air is masculine.
Wordy.
Very often it's
and we're gonna idolize earth, which is very earthy.
I'm not idolizing it. I'm cautious, like...
You're praising it.
No, I'm not.
Elevating it.
No, the mafia, for example. Like gangsters, they are all earth and no air.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, because you started off by bringing up the elements and you started talking about words. I'm trying to figure out if you're trying to ground philosophy, if you're trying to ground the words. Where are you trying to bring it? Right? Where are you trying to bring it?
I'm trying to divorce myself from that group of people who feel that words are all they're responsible for. That all they're responsible for is the generation of the right words. I'm not in that group of people. I believe that I should embody my philosophy before I talk my philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting.
It's like a high bar. It's kind of like a high bar to reach, but that's what I decided pretty early on.
I don't know. In this case, it might be our conception of the words that are throwing us off. I sort of think of the philosopher as being one who's inevitably embodied in his own philosophy, and yet the words are a way to express that. It's sort of like, I sort of think of the air, and really we could say of space, and light, and those sorts of things, as being where matter ends up. When it's all sort of done being matter, it ends up in the air.
But what if you write something down, then generations to come can read it because it was put into print or was etched in stone or something, but that just means you achieved longevity. But that doesn't mean that I don't know, it just seems like that itself is an earthly goal, is to sort of be immortal by writing something down and having maybe you'll be misunderstood in your own generation, but in later generations.
Well, that's just the thing, is I think that the words that are written down are never really fully understood. And so that's what I think makes them so airy and so sort of useful, and why I strive to write down all this stuff. Why, going back to what we were saying, when I have a thought and it slips away from me, why I look for it so hard, like why I try so strongly to get it back, is because words have this quality to them where they're both grounded and not at the same time.
I think one of the reasons I also don't care about words is because I might have a natural talent for the kind of analysis that for other people is like a big treasure, but I have it in abundance. So it's like supply and demand. Like for me, my grasp of the understanding of words is actually in such abundance that it actually is of lesser value to me than it is for other people who aren't as good at that natural analytical tendency. It's like a type of intelligence, and if you have it in abundance, you don't realize how well you off, how much better it makes your life. You start ignoring, it's just always there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the best theory I have. I do know there's something about me that it goes to that verbal place and then comes right back, because it doesn't, it's like I I don't strive for that verbal place because it's as if it's so easy for me to get to that I can get there, and then I look around to see, well, what other things are there in life? What else is out there? Mm-hmm. You know, like what you know. But I definitely have come to understand that about myself, that I do have some kind of intellectual trait, some kind of intelligence that may enable me to perform magic tricks, you know, or what appear to other people to be magic.
Like what?
Just like to understand words, but to not be attached to them. In this case.
Oh, and you're saying that people see that as magic in the sense that it's sort of something that they wouldn't do.
It's like I'm able to like use other things besides words, in addition to words. I don't know. I can't prove it. Like if
I think I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Let me try to express what you're saying, because I think you're actually saying something kind of beautiful. Most people get to the point, most people, including myself, get to the point where they see words for what they are. Right? Like, words are these sort of empty, airy things that we use to try to get at the earth, right? To get at the things that actually are. Words are these incorporeal things that we use to try to get at the bodily. Most people get to that point where they realize that, and they're kind of like, fuck, like, this sucks. You know, like, words are so important to me, like, what am I going to do? Like, I've already moved too far away from the earth, because that's the first thing the first thing you realize is the earth. The second thing you realize is words. Most people never really get past that point. They end up dying feeling like, this is as far as I can get, the words. You, my friend, are somebody who's transcended that, I don't think it's that you've returned to the earth. I much prefer your description of the light that you saw. And the light, because I sort of think of light as transcendence. Light, like I said, light is where everything ends up, right? We all sort of end up as light, energy, right? The earth is a stopping point. To me, the earth is the first one. The words are the second one. And the last one is just getting beyond that, right? Experiencing things not as they are in their form, in their matter, not as they are as they're spoken, but as something sort of beyond that. Something which most people don't quite attain, but which I think you do.
Yeah, and I don't know what to do with it either. I want to market it. I want to sell it. I want people to listen to our podcast and like be like, oh, that guy's awesome or something. I'm gonna I'm going to help make that guy's life interesting, because I feel bad because he's a national treasure. And, we're just gonna... What about commercial breaks?
Yeah, no, we should... I think we're about due for a commercial break.
Okay. Because, I don't know how that's supposed... I think in theory we could just do the Jeff and Casey show. It's like another podcast, and they just roll. Do they never... I mean, they might stop and just not say anything. Yeah, I think somehow we ought to make room for I just think they roll. In other words, they just give you an hour, and that's it. Like, boom, you know? Yeah, we've probably been going for a good half hour, but I think we ought to take a break. Okay. We'll be back after this short commercial break from our third person. So, thanks for listening thus far. We'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. We're back after that extended commercial break. Yeah, we're not planning to keep you that much longer. We figure, 40 minutes is pretty good, and I imagine this as being an hour-long podcast. I know. I've seen it. So, I mean, we can do 20 minutes, but we can do 20 minutes, we can do 10, and then, we don't have any sponsors right now, so our commercial break could be something. I have a few ideas for what we could do for our commercial breaks. I mean, both Zach and I are artists, so I think it would be interesting if we, share some of our work
on this podcast.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, I mean, we both have music that we do. It's very different. You know,
No, I know, but like this is to me, the Zach and Ethan trio is a work of art unto itself. And I know that we could fill it up with. I don't want to just look. I mean, well, okay. So, what is your idea?
So, my idea is that for our, this is our first episode. We don't have any sponsors, so that for our commercial
but nobody
break,
has sponsors. Who has a sponsor?
I know, but we went to a commercial break.
I know, but that was like what
We said it was going to be. We said it was going to be the mysterious third person, right?
Oh, the sponsor.
So my thought, well, the third person could either be the sponsor or it could be. For me, the third person in the Zach and Ethan trio is the spirit that's making us do this right now. Which is the very same.
But the spirit incarnates like the Holy Ghost in people and in objects.
Right. This is the very same spirit that it's making us do what we're doing right now. It's also the very same spirit that makes us create our art. Art to me is the most equivocal expression of this spirit, of this third person. And both you and I create music in different ways.
What do you mean?
You know?
Yeah.
And I was imagining that in the interlude, or at some point, it doesn't have to be this episode, it could be later, but I think we ought to share some of that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that would actually incentivize me to create more music.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ought to be, I see the function of this show as twofold. For us, right? For our sake, it's twofold. One is, as we were discussing in the first half of the show, is about getting our message out there. But the other one is just about expressing ourselves. And this is an audio podcast, so we have to rely on, we're already sort of going as far as we can in terms of expressing our thoughts. I guess we're speaking them out loud.
Well, yeah, I mean,
the next best thing we could do is create music. This is not a music show.
Yeah, no.
But both you and I create music on the side, and so I mean, at the very least, I thought that your music could serve as a sort of intro.
Yeah, well, it's fun. The funny thing is, I feel about my music the way you were nervous about this podcast.
That's so funny. Why is that?
Because it's okay music.
I thought it was awesome. I would be so proud if I had made something like that. Because you compose music. I mean, like, before we were talking about how, nobody calls himself a philosopher anymore. But, like, nobody calls himself a composer anymore. Like, I don't know, like, who, to come across a composer in this day and age?
I know a guy.
Who?
This guy, he makes video games. Like, I know what you mean, but, like, he's literally, like, that's his job, I mean,
how many philosophers do you know?
How many philosophers?
Yes. And then the next thing I'm going to ask you is how many composers do you know? And I guarantee you know 10 times as many philosophers as you do composers. And that you know 10 times as many regular people as you do philosophers. I guarantee it.
Well, I don't know what planet you're speaking from, but
I don't know what sort of social
people do write. Anyone who makes music, my brother's a composer. I mean, he makes electronic music. Like, if you make music, you're a composer.
I guess so. I'm not even a composer. I cover music. I compose stuff every once in a while, but it's more of like jamming, right? Like,
What are we trying to tell the listener right now? Like, what we will maybe might do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, are we just going to talk about shit, or are we going to do other stuff on this show?
I don't know. Like, I'm a little worried about the entertainment factor.
Whoa, how we've changed places now. Now you're worried about how entertaining this is? Now I'm feeling great about it.
Well, just like, I know. But that's like, I'm like, you're so relaxed. Why do you feel great about it?
So now you get the sense that you need to balance me out.
Yeah, I can't, I'm just thinking, if I was the listener, there's only so much, like, it's just like, it's like if whatever we're going to do, we should just do that. And I mean, we can talk about it, but then it's sort of like...
I almost feel like so we're talking about this spirit, right? This third person. I almost feel like this third person is sort
of... Zach trio.
They're sort of balancing us, right? Like The third person is the one that's sort of making you be a little more hesitant as I'm getting more confident. And earlier it was making me sort of hesitant as you were more confident. The third person is really just sort of the balance between us.
I always thought that, I sort of think the third person is a little bit more concrete. Like, tonight it might be a bottle of whiskey.
It might be. It could be the snow, too.
Yeah, but, like, the next time we might have a special guest, who knows, like, we actually have, like...
So the third person's always there. It's just a matter of...
It's like the whole
I mean, like, tonight it's not only the whiskey, though. Yeah, it's the snow, it's the room.
But how are we going to entertain these people? Like, how... I may be a little nervous here. I may be, getting nervous right now, but I'm thinking if I'm talking to the listener, I want to entertain them. Like, I felt... Look, I don't know about our first 40 minutes. And I don't know about, before the commercial break. But, like...
I listened to 3 seconds of it, and it was awesome. It was pure gold.
Yeah. Well...
I think we ought to... See, this is so funny, because we've swapped places now.
But I just think...
I think we ought to just trust ourselves that we think we're interesting, we think we're funny, and we think we're smart. And we ought to just trust the fact that we are. And that...
Interesting.
So long as we're trusting that, somebody's going to listen to us.
But, like, I just, like, how long a podcast could you expect somebody to listen to? That's what I'm saying. Like, aren't we approaching, like, sort of like, I'm just thinking,
so
we're
getting on to an hour, and, right, this would be, like, we're coming to the end of the first episode.
Okay.
I don't imagine we'll spend every episode talking about this. Do you want to try to set up for our audience what we're going to be talking about in future episodes? Would that help?
No, it's fine.
Oh, right, because, yeah, that's gonna...
No, it's not just that. It's like, we can talk about it then. I mean, like, all this setting up stuff, all this saying what we're gonna do, it doesn't matter. The way you present, the way you entertain is you just do. There is no try. There is only do or do not. There is no middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, without launching us into the discussion that we had earlier... There's do, and there's do better. There's do with more preparation.
But I'm against just telling people what we might do, or, unless they, I mean, like, I'm in the, I want to be, like, I want to do the thing. I don't want to, like, say what we might do, because that to me, like, there's just alarm bells going off in my head, like, that's boring, that's not entertaining, like, I would turn the podcast off right now if I was,
It's just so funny because this is what was going through my head when we first started, and then we hit a flow in the first half of the show, and I think we've hit it already again now. But
I know, but that's because I'm spiking. I mean, like, I'm hitting the horse. I'm whipping the horse. Like, I'm whipping the horse. Like, I'm deliberately. So what if we switched roles? Like. We may have switched roles, but I'm still saying it because I believe it. I'm saying it because and I admit, if you're a little too nervous about being entertaining, that can actually lead to you being annoying rather than entertaining. Like, if you're thinking about it too much,
Right. That is the inevitable tightrope that we're walking here.
But what if you're thinking about it?
Well, we've already gone past.
Do you already come full circle?
We've come full circle, and we're just now
starting up on the circle again. We're at the beginning of
the circle. I thought we're either within.
Did we collect $200 though?
That's how I sort of think of us as either within it, and we have two choices, right? We're either going to be inside the circle or we're going to be outside the circle.
I always like that about Monopoly.
What?
It's like, at least you can count on the $200. At least, like,
Are you looking for some sort of metaphorical $200 right now as we circle back? I mean, because you have to realize that we're going to continue, we're going to circle back a lot.
Yeah.
Right? To me, that should be our biggest fear. That's our biggest risk with this, that we're going to just keep talking about the same thing, yeah.
That's how I write, though. Every time I write about the exact same thing. It's like 50 Shades of, like, the same thing.
50 Shades of Zach.
50 Shades of the exact same color.
Doesn't matter what color it is.
No, it's just, the point being, what is the point? The point is that, wait, you're obsessed about, like, coming back in a circle?
I suspect that we're going to continue to talk about the same things. I mean,
But what about nuance? What if we keep finding, like, think of the Bare Naked Ladies. You know them?
Yeah.
You know, like, when they had $1 million, and then they having ketchup, and they, like, eat Mad Craft dinner and stuff? It's like they keep coming back. They're going in circles, but it's awesome. It was, like, the coolest. Like, why can't we be the Bare Naked Ladies at circles?
I haven't really listened to the lyrics of that song very carefully.
Oh, well, if I had... But the point is, like...
I gotta
the
mix
point
up
is
with
you
that
can
song.
come back in a circle.
I gotta mix up with that song. If I had $1 million...
That's the song.
No.
What?
Is that the song?
That's the Bare Naked Ladies, yeah. If I had $1 million... If I had $1 million...
No, I think there's like some like much slower song.
Car, a nice reliant automobile.
We'll figure this out later. We'll make it the outro to this episode.
No, the point. All I'm saying is you can come back in a circle again and again, and you can find cool things if you're the Bare Naked Ladies. And I am the Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah.
Are you? That's my question. That's what I'm worried about.
Okay, so what's the essence of the song? Tell me again, and then I'll decide if I'm really bare naked.
Well, like sort of at the bridge or in the middle, they start saying, you know, like there's the things we would do, like we don't have to do this anymore, and we can do this. But then they start like doing this sort of funny interrogation of like, you know, it's like they're like, well, you know, they have like a wrapped sausages, but they don't have wrapped bacon or something. And they go into these like little kind of like Seinfeld kind of things. I don't know if it's like you just ask the little question about the little thing.
Okay.
And like you're worried that that's going in circles. You know, but to me, like I've seen it work. I've seen it work in the entertainment industry. Going in circles can work.
Right.
You know, coming back to the same topic and just finding like another angle on it.
Well, yeah. Then in that sense, I am
worried or not worried.
I'm not worried. I think that we'll come back full circle and it'll be fine. We'll continue to talk about the same things, but we'll do it in different ways.
Besides, like if you leave ghosts in the house, they will haunt you come nighttime. That's how I talk. Okay, I say weird things. They don't.
So what do you mean by that? What do you mean by ghost?
I'm saying, like, you have to clean the house. You have to get all the dust. And sometimes you have to go back 3 or 4 times to get all the pieces of dust. Fine. And if you don't do that...
Fine. All this still implies that week by week we'll be talking about different stuff. And what I haven't heard you say, my faith lies in the fact that every week we'll have experienced different stuff. We'll have made progress on our own thoughts enough that we'll bring something new to the table.
Yeah.
Even if we continue to come back to certain sort of, I don't know, you could call them disagreements. Yeah, you could call them timeless questions. You know, we'll keep coming back to these things, and we just have to hope that our listeners appreciate these questions as much as we do.
No, you don't. They will, or they will, or they will not. There is no hope.
If they've made it this far, they probably do.
Do or do not. There is no hope. Like, they either will like us or they won't.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm saying. You gotta let God take care of it. You know? If God wills that, you know, that's what I'm, you know, if God, not, just, we don't have any control over that. If we're trying, it's not going to make people like us any better. You know? Like, if we try harder,
I don't know,
people won't like 2 guys trying to get people to like them.
I don't know, I could disagree with you on so many levels. I mean,
yeah.
You know, it all comes down to how we define try. Like, does trying mean trying to make this sound right?
Yeah.
In that case, I think it does kind of matter. Does trying mean trying to talk about things that people are interested in? No. I don't think we have to do that. I think we can trust that whatever we talk about, we'll talk about it with passion.
Right.
And that's enough. But we have to try.
But I just see that as like, people can tell. People can tell, oh, you're just trying to be famous. You're not really in it for, for the listener. You're not really in it for them because you're in it for you.
Well, I mean, we haven't really spoken about them at all. I mean, no, at no point tonight have we said that we're in this to help our listener.
That's the trio. That's the third person. Is the listener. Holy shit, it didn't even occur to me. It didn't even occur to me.
That was like the first thing that occurred to me. Oh. Look, there's a few, I can tell you the three main things.
That's it, I didn't even...
The third person can either be the listener, or it can be the context. The context would include the whiskey, the water, the room, the snow.
And the freaking fact that we're recording
our
conversation.
Everything,
I mean,
everything that's
the elephant in the room. I mean,
us. On the other hand, the third person could be the listener. Or it could be the spirit. The thing that sort of connects all three of us, right?
I just didn't even occur to me that the listener was the third person.
Really?
Seriously, like, I came up with the name. But
you did come up with the name. I'm pretty sure at one point I suggested that the third person could be the listener.
Oh.
And we can check our correspondence, but
I mean, obviously, like, the third person is sort of a multi-person in the sense that
the third person is ambiguous.
I mean, like, every listener unto himself, or herself, or his self, if you're
I've never heard that before. Is that like a non-gender specific?
Yeah, no, if like, the Z. Zer self?
That's it. Zer? Is it Zer or Ziz?
I don't remember.
Or maybe it should be Ziz self.
Ziz self.
Ziz self.
Ziz self.
I like that. I'm gonna try to use it somewhere.
Yeah, especially since we don't know, for all we know.
It's so funny that we have to choose, right? Like
the language,
Yeah, like our
it's
language.
like shackles. The language gives you a shackle on the right and a shackle on the left.
Yeah, you have to choose which one.
Yeah, like, do you want the...
Yeah, you can't get out of it. And then it's funny when people try to get out of it and then they start to, like, say things that are, like, grammatically incorrect. The best you can do is say itself, and then people are like, why are you referring to a person as an it? And it's like, well, because that's what it is. But a lot of people just say they. They go
themselves. Yeah, they use the plural because it's gender neutral.
Yeah, and that actually colloquially that sounds fine. You can say like, the
listener themselves.
Themselves, and then you're fine. But then they forget later, and they're like they use it in the same.
But honestly, I didn't even realize like the recording device, which is recording and then being listened to, transferring the data to the computer system, the internet, the wide world web of the internet, storage, facilities.
Yeah, which draws into question time and
warehouses,
space and
light speed.
I mean, there are two choices. You can think of the third person as existing in time and space with us right now. Or you can think of the third person as existing outside of our time and space. Right?
No, yeah, in a removed time and space. Like if you're listening to this podcast on the train, like, you're obviously not listening to it now. It's being recorded right now. We don't have a show, not a live show. We don't have callers.
We don't have an audience right now, even though we keep referring to them.
Yeah, we don't have you have to be listening to this in a removed time location, at a distance of time.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're not part of the trio.
Right.
Right.
Even though for us right now, this is it's an imaginary third person, whereas for them it's...
But you're part of the trio. I mean, you're really important, I would say. Yeah. You're good enough. You're smart enough. Doggone it.
Doggone it. People like you. Alright, well, we're coming on the end of the hour. Any concluding thoughts?
Oh, we don't need concluding thoughts. We just press the button.
We just press the button.
Yeah. If you had a producer, you'd say, this show's produced by, Ethan and Zach, or my name's Zach.
This show is produced by Zach and Ethan.
Yeah.
And my name is Ethan.
And I'm Zach.
And that's it for this episode of the Zach and Ethan Trio.
Yeah.